What's up, Hardies and Hardos? Back at it. Oh, a little switcheroo to start the episode. Appreciate
Second
it.
time in a row. We had to do it.
Yeah. I love being on this left side. We're back at it, though, for another fantasy special. This we do have one new segment this week. Otherwise, we're going to rock with over and under and sleeper starts. Again, we like those. We thought those segments were good. And, yeah, we think it makes sense going into week 7 with starting to be a lot of buys. The Bills are on bye, Vikes are on bye. There's some good players on bye this week.
Eagles on bye.
Yeah, Eagles on bye. You might have to be making some tough decisions on who you're starting this week. So let's just start with our over-under. I'll throw out my first under, and that's Eno Benjamin, who actually plays tomorrow night against the Saints. He's projected 11.1. Saints are 10th in fantasy against running backs, so they're good defensively. I just don't think Eno Benjamin is a lead back. I don't think he ever will be. I don't think he can handle that type of volume and be successful in it. I picture him, more as that change of pace, third down type back. So versus a good defense, and my questions on if he can handle full volume, that's why I had to go under. Last week, he went under as well against the Seahawks, who we all obviously know is not as good of a defense as the Saints. So that also played into my prediction here. He essentially has to get a touchdown. And for an offense that I just throwing this number off the top of my head, I believe only has 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns this year. I know, Benjamin 2 weeks ago got one. I don't think James Conner has one yet this year. This has been an offense that's been struggling. They just lost Hollywood Brown. Sure, they get Hopkins back, but they did lose Hollywood Brown. So I question if they're going to even be able to put up a lot of points against good defense. So I got to go under on Eno Benjamin.
Yes, I like that one. I agree with most of those points. My first under here is Drake London. Now you might be saying, wait, weren't you just talking 2 weeks ago about Drake London getting a huge target share, blah, 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 blah. Last 3 weeks, under 5.5 points in half PPR every week, 2.7, and then 2 5.5 weeks. His snap count is going down, 80 to 67 to 67 again this week, only 4 targets. They play Cincinnati this week, who is a top 10 defense against opposing wide receivers this season. So I think 9.05 is too high of a projection for him, and I think London will be under again.
Let me ask you this, just off the top of your head. What do you think about Pitts? Think he's going to go under this week too?
I mean, I don't know. It seems like haven't figured out still how to get Pitts involved in the offense as much as you'd like. I mean, He only played 57% of the snaps on 3 targets last week. Like, the man has had over 7 targets only twice this year. It's like we gotta figure this out. This man should be getting 7 to 10 every week. So
yeah, that is insane how they're using him this year. Let's just block Kyle Pitts instead of sending him out for routes after we used a third pick on him, 3rd overall pick, something like that. Highest drafted tight end of all time. Yeah. My second under, though, is James Robinson, another running back. Pretty much the same reasons here as Eno Benjamin, playing a good defense. They play the Giants. The Jags do. He's projected 10.14, and the Giants are 11th in fantasy. So just behind the Saints against running backs, obviously, that is. 3 weeks in a row, James Robinson has gone under. His points has been 2.9, 4.9, and 6 these past 3 weeks. And he has been under 50.
So he's due for a good game is what you're saying.
He is due for a good game, but one thing that is not good is he's been under 50% snap count in 4 of the 6 games so far this year, including the last 3. So I just, decreasing usage against a good defense, or at least a defense that has been performing well thus far. I don't see James Robinson being able to score 10 points. I really don't.
Agreed. Just had to give you some shit, even though I agreed.
He could definitely. I definitely could be buying my words, and he could definitely rebound. That's for sure. But we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. And that's the end of the under segment. We're gonna jump to overs. I went 3 overs here because it was just that kind of week. My first over is Taysom Hill, 4.97. Just has to get 5 points. He's gotten 5 points in 2 out of his 5 starts. This last week was one of his unders at 0.5 points. So again, he's only playing 20 to 25% of the snaps, but at the tight end position, which is a starving for points, he's still tight end 8 right now. So still a very startable tight end with a high upside against Arizona, who has been good against bad against traditional tight ends, a lot of points, and also has given up a lot of big plays this year, which is what Taysom Hill does. So against the pretty bad
Facts.
Arizona defense, I like Taysom Hill at over when I got 4.97.
Yeah, I didn't say. I mean, he only need he only needs to give you 5 to go over on that. So
Yeah.
I like that one. Mine first over is also a tight end, and that's George Kittle, projected 9.64 against the Chiefs. Obviously, any game versus the Chiefs can be high scoring, so that played into it. They're 21st in fantasy versus tight end, so in the bottom third of the league. He's coming off his best performance of the season. He had 8 catches on 10 targets for 83 yards last week. So, and another key note here, which is probably the most important note, is that Trent Williams is, at least right now, expected to finally make his return from injury this week as well. So he was already seeing 10 targets last week, even having to be in that blocker role still. So especially if Trent Williams comes back, this is a guy that I would be absolutely shocked if George Kittle didn't at least score 9.64 points against the Chiefs. So I expect him to go over.
I like that. My next over is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Dallas has given up a lot of yards to receivers this year. They get pressure on the quarterback, and that's why their defense has been successful. They caused a lot of mistakes, but they've still given up yards overall as a defense. And other than last week at New England, which I take as a little bit of an aberration because it was his first week back from injury, and it's Belichick, and their defense played amazing and looked like Campbell got outcoached. However, other than that, the other 3 weeks, he's had at least 9 targets every week and has played at least 75% of snaps, scored at least 10 points in half PPR. So I just think the 11.5 number, especially given Dallas's defense and the fact that I'm betting on him scoring only, he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 2. So I think it's about time he gets on the touchdown board. And if that happens, the 11.5 and a half is an easy over.
Yep, I agree there. My last over is Brian Robinson, projected 8.55 against the Packers. This is a defense we all thought would be really good, and they started the season playing well, but as of late, the Packers defense has been struggling. They're 20th in fantasy against running backs, so another bottom third matchup here. So that bodes well for Robinson. He obviously just became the full-time starter last week and immediately got 17 carries. So immediately got a great workload. The only concern with Robinson would be the receiving game. He wasn't featured at all in that, so that could obviously cause him to go under here. But another important note, though, is that the Packers have allowed 9.5 fantasy points in half PPR at least in every single game this year. So 9.5, that's one more point than he's projected. So I'm going to stick with that trend, and Brian Robinson's going to go over this week.
I like that. They obviously like him there in Washington. My last over is again another easy one, I feel like, and that's Chris Godwin. I feel like we haven't seen the Tampa offense explode yet, and even though Carolina's defense is bad against opposing quarterbacks and receivers, it's looked choppy so far for Tampa. So if it looks choppy enough again that the game is close enough, I think Godwin has an easy. His number is 11.02. I mean, he's had 12 over 10 targets in in 2 of the 3 games he's played so far, and in the other one he had 6. So scored at least 9.3 every week, 9.3, 9.4, 12.5. I think given that I think it's going to be a close game, they're going to be throwing a lot. I think it's an easy over, even based on he's going to have 10 catches, and that's 5 points right there. Makes it real easy to get the 11 points needed to be over.
Yeah, I agree. I like Chris Godwin this week as well. Moving on, that was your last one, right?
Yes.
Moving on to our sleeper start segment now. My first one, Michael Gallup. He's kind of a fringe guy. He is actually started in 31% of leagues already. But he plays the Lions, projected 9 points. As we know, the Lions haven't been very great against receivers, and as a defense, in terms of their defense as a whole, have given up points a lot this year. So that bodes well for Gallup this week. He came off of 76% snap count last week, so he seems to reclaimed his WR2 role on the team after being injured. Obviously, they wanted to ease him back the first couple weeks, so he's back to his normal usage. And the real reason why I think he's a good sleeper start this week is Dak Prescott. He is medically cleared to be a full participant in practice. He was seen throwing with the starters this week already at practice. So I think there is a real chance that Dak is quarterback this week. And if Dak is quarterback, I really love Gallup this week as a sleeper start.
I like that one. I think Gallup is a very good sleeper start this week. Mine is another tight end. It's easy at the tight end position because you're always trying to get any random production that you can find. But
absolutely,
Greg Delucic, I don't know. Delchich, I don't know. I'm sorry. I watched that game last week with the sound. I didn't have the sound on for that game, so I didn't get the announcer pronunciations there, and I couldn't find a reliable one. So I'm sorry, Greg, I butchered your name, but only started in 9% of leagues. Last week he was the first game he's played in. He played on 71% of the snaps. Got a touchdown. Had 44 yards overall. He had that one long touchdown. But again, deeper leagues, you're looking at a rough tight end position. I know, like, I've got Rock and Mark Andrews in our guillotine league this week, and this is the type of guy that I'm going to have to start if he doesn't come through and play. So a lot of situations like that where you could be looking to just get some lucky points out of a guy, and this is an upper-comer in Denver that could be that guy for you.
Speaking of lucky points, that transitions well into my second super start. That's Donovan Peoples-Jones, projected 7.8 this week versus the Ravens, only started in 16% of leagues. The Ravens, very, very bad against receivers this year, 29th in fantasy. So they're in the bottom three. He has played at least 84% of snaps in 4 straight weeks. So he is definitely the WR2 on this team. His targets in the last 3 have been 9, 7, and 5. He has caught 5, 4, and 4 balls these last 3 weeks, and his yardage has been 71, 54, and 74. So at least 70 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. He's on the field a lot. This is a plus matchup. So I like Donovan Peoples-Jones as a superstar. If you're dealing with a lot of injuries or bye weeks or both, this might be a guy you could look to pick up and throw in your starting lineup this week.
I like that. My next guy is a guy who I've started earlier this season and been disappointed by, but again, he is going to be a WR1 on his team this Sunday, and that is Marquez Callaway. He last week had 7 targets, played 75% of the snaps in the same type of role. It looks like at least Thomas and Landry are going to be out for sure tomorrow night, and Olave
is playing.
Olave is playing? Okay.
Yep.
So he'll be WR2 for Callaway here, but who knows with the concussion situation with Olave, how that'll go. It'll be a little touch and go, especially at the beginning, I feel like, on the amount of snaps he plays. And again, this is a deeper format sleeper start, only started in 6% of leagues, only owned in 42%. But with all the buys, especially for some of the top receivers, Brown and Jefferson and Diggs this week, I think you can get some value out of a guy who's going to get a lot of targets.
And not to mention, he's a deep play threat. So, he just needs to break off one deep play and to give you good fantasy points this week, for sure. Is that it for your sleeper starts? Should we transition to our last segment here?
Yes, sir.
Our last segment will be a new one. It's Would You Rather. This is in regards to flex plays here. So my first Would You Rather is Tony Pollard versus Romeo Doubs. This one would really stump me if I had to throw one of these guys in at my flex. Thank God I don't, because these guys both have plus matchups this week. Pollard's projected 9.11 against the 21st ranked Lions. Dobbs projected 9.32 against the 28th ranked Commanders. So both plus matchups. Pollard has scored at least 10.5 in 3 of his 6 games, but has scored under 6 in the other 3. So little boomer bust for Pollard so far this year. Dobbs has only scored over 10 in 2 games, and he has back-to-back performances of only 4 fantasy points these last 2 weeks, but he has seen 86% plus snap share in 4 straight weeks, which is incredible for a rookie receiver. I guess, Spinny, who would you rather start here, Pollard or Dobbs?
Who do the Cowboys play again? Sorry, I spaced that
Cowboys
part.
play the Lions,
Yeah,
21st ranked.
I think I'm going Pollard slightly. I don't trust the Packers, and it's hard for me to bet on them after the last 2 weeks they've had, whereas the Cowboys have snuck a lot out of Cooper Rush, and I think that Pollard, man, it seems like there's got to be some smart guys in that organization that see how much better Pollard is than Zeke at this point. So I feel like at some point the carry share is going to change slightly, especially given the explosiveness Pollard's had from not on a week-to-week basis, but on a random basis. So I'm going to take Pollard, but this is a good one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pollard. Same reasons you just said. I think he, essentially these guys, you're starting hoping for a big play. And I think Pollard has that in him more than Dobbs. We've seen it already this year. He broke off for 50, 60-yard touchdown 2 weeks ago. So Pollard, very big play threat guy, and is also featured in the receiving game, obviously, more than Zeke. So the increased volume potential, like you just said, and all of that, I would choose Pollard over Dobbs this week.
All right. I know we said flex, but my first one is a quarterback on quarterback question.
Ooh, okay.
And that is Taylor Heineke against the Green Bay Packers. Packers have been 20th against quarterbacks so far. However, I see Washington getting down early in this game and having to throw a ton. And so that, especially with the Packers coming off their 2 losses, I know I just played both sides of that coin with Dobbs in this one, but I could see it going both ways. That's why I use that. I spoke out of both sides of my mouth on that argument, but that's why. And I do think the Packers will win. I just don't necessarily think it'll be Dobbs. Anyways, back to Taylor Heineke. I think he'll get a lot of pass attempts late in the game and maybe some scrub time touchdowns. So I think that could be an option for him. And my other person is a guy who had very much early season success, and that is Tua. So you got Tua against the Jets. Jets are in the middle of the league at between 15 and 20 there against opposing quarterbacks. The Jets, it's going to be a big game. Dolphins 4-2, Jets 5-1, I believe, is the record.
Jets are 4-2.
3-3.
Yep,
Dolphins
3-3
3-3 and 4-2. Big AFC East matchup there to determine how the season's going to go. But again, given everything Tua went through, is he going to be shaky coming off that? Who knows? But Heineke, Tua.
This one's tough. As we know, especially so far this year, division matchups have been very low scoring. So that could be in play here in this Jets and Dolphins game, which obviously doesn't bode well for Tua's fantasy outlook. And like you said, I do agree that Heineke might get a lot of pass attempts and usage in this game, given they are expected to be losing to the Packers throughout this game. I'm going to just go I still have to go with Tua here, though, just because he has Waddle and Tyreek on his side. Since he has those 2 amazing guys, maybe he is a little shaky after missing some weeks, but he's got tons of playmakers. He's able to we've seen Waddle and Tyreek. They can catch the ball 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and turn that into a 50-yard play. So I got to go with Tua because of that.
I like that. I think I would go Tua as well, but I think it's closer than
it is. It's definitely closer than a lot of people would think, for sure. My next would you rather is another flex situation here, I believe, or at least I hope this is a flex situation for you, because if this is a WR2 situation for you, you've been struggling so far, and that is Robert Woods versus Chase Claypool. Woods coming into this week, WR65, Chase Claypool, WR42. Obviously, both been struggling, but both have been playing okay as of late. Woods 10.5, 11, and 6 fantasy points heading into his bye this past week. Claypool is obviously coming off a good game, 19.9 points. He had 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown this last week. Basically, his only relevant game so far this season. Woods is projected 9 versus the 3rd-ranked Colts, so not a good matchup there. But Claypool's projected 8.5 versus the 24th-ranked Dolphins. I guess who do you start here? I mean, I'm not confident in either of these guys, to be honest. But
no, I'm not
if
confident.
we're playing devil's advocate and having to choose one here, Spinny, who are you going with?
I think I'm taking Claypool.
Okay.
I think I this sounds weird, but I have a slight better outlook on Pickett getting Claypool the ball than I do Tannehill getting Woods the ball, just from what I've seen so far on the season. And
yeah, I agree with
Claypool
that.
could get a lot of dump offs, and I think that could be a nice little PPR, especially half PPR as well. So I'm going to take Claypool, but I don't want to start either of those guys.
I'm going with Claypool, same reasons you said. Plus, I just think he's a bigger or a better, I should say, big play threat than Robert Woods. Robert Woods, as we know, is just essentially his whole career has just been a PPR god. So I like the ability, Claypool's ability to bust off a big play at any moment. He's talented. So as we saw last week, he scored 20 points. So I'm going to rock with Claypool as well this week over Robert Woods.
All right, last one for me. Rondale Moore plays the New Orleans Saints this week. He'll again be WR2, given Hopkins being back but Brown being out. I think he's in over Robbie, given just the acclimation to the offense right away. But he, in the last 3 weeks that he's played, he has played at least 86% of snaps and had at least 5 targets, with 8 and 10 targets coming in the next 2 games. But again, his max points has been 9.6. He plays New Orleans, who is in the bottom 8 against the opposing wide receivers. So I think he has some potential there. Rondale Moore is the first guy. Second guy is Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd had an up and down year, but again, every week but one has played at least 70% of the snaps. Last 2 weeks played over 95%. Target shares up and down, 5, 5, 7, 2, 5, 5, 4, 6. Kind of up and down there, had a couple of touchdowns. But I think against Atlanta, and they probably are going to they're going to throw quite a bit at the beginning of the game. Atlanta's bottom 5 against opposing wide receivers. So I think both could have go-off days. I think these are definite teams with some of those top 3 receivers are going to be starting one of these guys. So Rondale Moore, Tyler Boyd.
I like this one. This one's tough. I'm going to go with Rondale Moore. I've liked his usage these last couple weeks since he returned from injury, and now that Hollywood Brown is out, as we've seen throughout this season up till this point, Kyler Murray loved throwing to Hollywood Brown. He was feeding him on those short routes. I think Rondale Moore kind of turns into that guy. I mean, like you said, he had 10 targets last week, right? The week before that, he had double digits, I believe, too. So great usage already, and now has jumped to WR2 on his team. I like that a little more than Tyler Boyd, who still will have to play behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this week.
I like that. I would say Moore too, but again, I could be convinced either way on that one. So
yeah, I agree.
All right, there it is. Fantasy special week 6, 7.
Week
right?
7, essentially, because we didn't talk
about week 6.
We just talked what's going on coming up here in week 7. Go ahead, drop comments on segments, please. We haven't really heard from y'all. We'd like to hear from y'all a little more about segments you guys want to hear. If we're doing a good job, then and we don't see comments, that's kind of what we think. Then we're just going to run with what we want to do. So drop comments if there's any interesting segments or anything fantasy related that you want to hear. Obviously the NBA just started too, so if we want to throw in some fantasy basketball talk, we can. Just drop
Yes.
comments. Let us know if that's what you're interested in.
We can throw that in, especially when Zion has over 20 points in the first half. So
Really? Right now he does?
like 20 fantasy points, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals for
And you
Zion
and you
tonight.
and you started him tonight?
I did.
That's a ballsy start. That is.
3
First,
steals for your categories league, people. That's huge.
yeah, so yeah, just drop comments. We can expand beyond just fantasy football, and we can talk fantasy basketball now too as well. So
Okay.
just let us know, and we will see you guys next week with another fantasy special.
Bye.
Bye.